Alright, this book is called The Quilt Maker's Journey. Now this book has a lot of words in it, so I'm actually just going to read the words and then show you guys the pictures, okay? Okay. You may have once heard the story of a quilt maker who lived in a wee house on the side of a mountain. Only her neighbors were the sun, the moon, and the stars. Each day she toiled away on beautiful quilts that all said were the loveliest in the land. Few had ever seen her, maybe a lost shepherd, a wandering woodcutter or two, but many knew who she was by her deeds. They said that she was the most gifted and giving woman ever known, and that she could have grown immensely rich by selling her wondrous quilts. But she would only give them to those in need. And so every night by the light of the candlelight, the quilt maker was remembered in the prayers of many. But if by luck you should happen upon her and ask her if she had always been such a giving person, the quilt maker would tell you that she was once quite different indeed. As a young woman, she gave no thought to people in need. It was not that she was selfish, but because she and all the children in the town that they lived in a world where there was no poverty and where it wasn't known. Alright, so this is the quilt maker. She's making wonderful quilts. A great stone wall, thick and high, had been built around the town where she grew up. The children there had never seen what was outside, but the town elders warned them that there was something terrible out there, something too awful to speak of. They told them to never, ever even think about looking for a way to the other side. And so, for many a night, the young would tremble in their beds, fearful of the creatures they imagined lay waiting outside the city. So you can see here that this is the city, and then this is all of the different animals and dangerous things that they thought were out there. Because all the people in her town were rich, the girl thought the same was true of everyone in the world. Her parents died and left her a fantastic fortune, and her life was very much like that of a princess. Everything she ever needed, she had. Everything she ever wanted, she was given. So incredibly wealthy was she that one day she simply ran out of things to buy. Can you imagine running out of things to buy? I can't. So in these pictures you can see this is her big house and this is just all the stuff she could buy. The house where she lived was grand and tall, so tall that it cast shadows on all the others in the town below. Each and every meal was a feast, with delectables piled high on a table. So long was the table that the waiters needed bicycles to get from one end of the table to the other. She was never cold, never ever hungry, and was always safe from harm. Yet she was unhappy as she was rich. So look at that really long table, and then there's waiters on bicycles. Can you imagine trying to carry a tray of food on a bicycle? I don't know if I could do that. Often, she would visit the seamstress who made all of her gowns and had taught her how to make pretty little things with cloth and thread. One day, as they sat together in the attic sewing room, the older woman could see that the girl was sad. "What makes your mouth turn down so?" she asked her. "Oh, I don't know. I have everything anyone could ever want. Friends who love me and wonderful parties to go to each night of the week. It seems as if there should be something more. I feel so empty in my heart. I feel that I'm meant to do something important with my life, but I just don't know what it is. Don't worry, said the seamstress as she hugged her. You'll find your way. But how? Is it near or far? Is it right there before you to see? I cannot say for sure, but I do know that you've already begun your journey. So this is her with the seamstress who taught her how to sew. Now, ever since she was quite young, the girl had always been known for her bravery. She was the first one to climb the tallest tree, as you can see in this picture, dance beneath the wildest rainstorm, as you can see in this picture, or stand up to anyone for what she believed in. And so, for some time, she thought about stealing outside the wall just to see what horrors lurked there. She knew the elders would be furious, but her friends would love the stories she brought back. It had always been said by some that far below the town hall there was a secret passageway, and that if you were bold enough to venture outside the wall, it would lead you to the world beyond. However, the stories went that those who had gone in had become lost forever. Still, one night the girl decided to see for herself. She slipped by the snoozing guards outside the town hall, right up here. Then she crept down the stairs lower and lower beneath the sleeping city until she came to the bottommost cellar. So you can see her climbing all the way down these stairs to the cellar. There was only one door, and a sign read, "All who pass here shall never return." She looked behind her at the stairs that would lead her back to her warm feather bed, but she decided to go on. The girl turned the knob and with all her strength pushed the great groaning door and went through. The air was freezing. Spider webs hung from the ceiling, like in this picture. Spiders became trapped in her hair, but because she knew that they meant no harm, she helped them to safety. She heard the rats rattling in the darkness and the bats squeaking to one another as though they were talking about her. Still, with her heart beating, she went on. Then she came to a place where the passageway led in several different directions. She chose her path and pressed on until finally her candle burned out. Alone in the darkness, she became confused and could not tell which way was which. She couldn't even guess how to return the way she had come, but she was determined to go on. Then just ahead she spied a burning candle, and when she reached that candle, another suddenly appeared behind it. She had no idea what this mysterious magic might be, but one by one the candles led her through the gloomy passageway to the other side of the wall. When she finally came out, it was already morning, and what she saw was terrible indeed. So you can see her there. She's following the candle all the way through the passageway, and then she finds the door there. There were people in ragged clothes. Some lay on the ground without bed or blanket or pillow. Others cried of hunger. She saw houses too old to keep a body warm, and there were children who had run out of tears to even cry. She went on, expecting to see a dragon or something just as frightening as the elders had led her to believe. But there was nothing of the sort. For days she walked, passing through more and more villages, much like the first. There was unhappiness and helplessness everywhere. The world, she sadly realized, was not as she thought it was. Finally, tired, she lay down in a field to sleep. But when the girl woke, she discovered that she had gone so far that she had no idea where her town was anymore. How will I ever find my way? The girl wondered. What will I eat? Still, she knew she must be strong, and so she started on her way. So she came out and she saw this village where poor people lived, and she had never seen poor people before. So it leads her all the way up to where she fell asleep here. But the girl needed not have worried. All along the way, she found out that people she had been afraid of were kind to her. She learned that it wasn't them, but living in need was frightful. They were happy to help her in any way. If they had little in their pantries, they gave what they could. If they had nothing, they gave from their hearts. Over the winding, rising road she traveled. When her fine shoes fell away in scraps, a passing girl asked her what was going on. After listening to her tale, she took off her own shoes, the only pair of shoes she owned, and gave them to the barefooted girl. But I can't take your only pair of shoes, she replied. Oh, please, the ragged girl said with a smile. I know what it's like being far from home, and I hope they carry you there all the faster. So over here you can see the girl who gave her the shoes, and then there's different people helping her out along the way on this page. One day, as she trudged along, a junkman pulled a cart piled high, stopped her, and pulled out the only thing of value that he carried. I have no bread or horse that I can help you on your journey, but I can give you this rose, and when you feel tired or hopeless, its beauty will remind you that wonderful things may arise in the next bend of the road. So this is the man with all her junk, and then he gave her a rose, as you see there. When she had gone longer than ever with nothing to eat, she found an apple tree with just a few pieces of fruit left on its branches. She gathered the apple in her skirts, and hungry as she thought she was, she decided to walk on and save them till night. But she had not gone far when she passed an old woman sleeping beside the road. Her face was thin and her fingers crooked with age. The young girl felt badly for the woman, so she decided to leave her an apple to find when she woke up. Then down the road there was someone else, and then another in need. To each she gave an apple until she found out that there was nothing left for her. But the young girl now realized she no longer felt hungry. Instead, it was as though she had eaten a whole basket of fruit. So full of happiness she felt from these little gifts she had given. Now she saw the world as it truly was, and so she knew where her happiness lay. But before she could go find her new life, she must first face the elders of the town and their lies. So you can see her, she's giving the apple to the woman sleeping, and then her giving to different people along the road. She walked for many days. Although it seemed like the town would never appear, at last she saw it before her. It rose glistening and grand into the sky. Her return was the talk of the town, and the majestic celebration was announced for that very day. But before it could begin, the young lady marched straight to the town hall. The elders stood tall and stern before her. She spoke for a long time about the people who lived outside the town, far and near, who needed their help. So this is the town again, and all the people who were so happy to see her. But then she went to the town to talk to those elders. These guys are the elders that she's going to be talking to. "Oh, just ignore the poor," said one of the elders. "If they wanted to be rich, well, then they shouldn't have been born poor," added another. "Now, my dear," said a third, "you should know that if you don't look at these people, then you don't have to think about them. That's why we built the wall around us in the first place." "Well," she said, "I can never be happy here with so much when there are so many people in the world with so little." The young lady then told them that she had decided to leave the town so that she could help these people. A clamor arose among the elders. No one had ever dared to leave the town before. At last one spoke. "If you go," he said, "know this. You shall lose all that you own and never be allowed to return. You will be banished with nothing." Again, these are the elders telling her that. But she knew what she was in her heart, and she knew what would finally bring her happiness. Her plan had been to use her riches to help those in need. Now all she had to give was herself, so she walked away from her friends and the only house she had ever known. And she carried nothing but the clothes she wore and the ring, which she had hidden away, that her mother had given her such a long time ago. Now her bed was an armful of leaves, and she combed her hair with a handful of twigs. Her dinner a mouthful of whatever the earth would grant her. One day she came upon a man whose small field of corn would not grow, but she did not know how to help him. Besides the wild ocean, she watched the fishermen whose nets caught no fish, but she did not know how to help him either. She met a family whose tiny old house was falling down, but she did not know how to help them. So she left with nothing with her. Do you think that you could give up your house and everything that you have to help others? That would be really hard, wouldn't it? But she couldn't find a way to help these people yet. She wandered on, wondering what gift, if any, was hers to give. Then early one dawn, as she neared another strange town, a single candle burning in the distance. She followed its light over the field and forest, and eventually discovered a mother and son huddled in a doorway, just like this one. They were shivering in their sleep. The young lady would have liked to cover them with something warm, but she had neither a blanket nor a coat. And then, at last, she knew what to do. So this is her, and she finds mother and son. Early the next morning, as soon as the shops opened their doors, she sold her beloved ring, the last thing her mother had given her. Then she bought needles and thread and cloth. Looking for just the right place to work, a great mountain drew her up upon its shoulders. The aspen leaves had fallen and dressed the forest in gold. The girl followed a path made by a deer and was brought to a meadow near the top of a mountain. Here the trees greatly swayed and waved a welcome in the wind. Beneath one she found the perfect place to work. Someone long ago had made a chair out of stones and had left it for whomever shall pass by the mountain. It was so high up that she felt that she could have chatted with the man in the moon. Right away she set to work. So you can see that she bought all of her materials and then she walked up the mountains. Now, the seamstress had taught her how to make a lot of pretty things, such as little pillows and handkerchiefs and such. But the young lady decided to make a quilt for the mother and son. It had to be one most certainly that was very warm. But it also had to be something else as well. And this was very important. It must be beautiful, so beautiful that the quilt would make the two feel loved, not forgotten, if only just for a moment. The young lady was afraid that she wouldn't be able to make the quilt she had seen in her dream. But as soon as she worked and time passed, it seemed as though something magical had touched her. The sun had never seemed warmer, or the sky bluer. Her hands, awkward at first from lack of practice, soon flew like young darting sparrows, and all the while she felt as though invisible angels guided her eye and her needle. In this way, the quilt slowly came to be. So you can see there that she's making a quilt. Though she had wondered how she'd be able to live on nothing, she need not have. One morning, as she bent over her work, a grandfather squirrel surprised her with a gift of nuts. A wild but mild boar brought her carrots that had been gathered especially for her. Another time, a bristling brown mother bear presented her with a honeycomb. Then a duck arrived with her 5 well-behaved ducklings, all waddling in a row, quack, quack, quacking their hellos. Each carried a big raspberry in their beak. So you can see that all the different animals brought her food. And if it should threaten to rain, a flock of birds of every known kind would gather above the tree as she worked. Together they would spread their wings like a great chattering umbrella above her. Look at all of those birds that are there. It's a lot of birds. And sure enough, out of the hours and bits of cloth and cotton thread, a lovely quilt came to be. It had the colors of a hopeful morning and rosy-cheeked children and gardens bursting with bloom. The quilt was ready. Though it was dark, she put the quilt under her arm and stumbled down the path to look for the poor mother and son. And then the man in the moon came out, as though he had heard tell of her plight and sought to light her way. So the finished quilt is up in the corner, as you see, and then you can see her in the moonlight going all the way down the mountain, which is really cool. It's a really big quilt, isn't it? The quilt maker found the two asleep in each other's arms, so not to wake them, she carefully wrapped her tight gift and right around them. When they began to stir, the quilt maker quickly hid. Both mother and son awoke with a start, and then cried with delight at their marvelous gift. They looked all around to see who had given them such a fine thing, but no one was there. And so, in time, they wearily closed their eyes and then slept, now warm, now hopeful, beneath their new quilt. They would never know it was she who had made them this gift, though, because the quilt maker didn't think that that was important. All they had been sure of, like many, many others in need in the years to come, was that someone, somewhere in the world, cared for them. And so, having found her way and her gift, the quilt maker settled on the great mountain top she liked so well. She worked steadily through the seasons of the year on her wonderful quilts. When finished with each, she left her gifts of warmth and hope in the hands of someone in need. So you can see them, mother and son, getting their quilt and how happy they were, and then her going on top of the mountain to make more quilts. Now, after hearing the quilt maker's tale, you still might look at her tiny house and faded clothes and feel sad for her. But her quick smile and knowing eyes would tell you that you must not have heard the story well, because she might have had a little, but she had everything she'd ever need to be happy.